Well, we're literally, or I should say, I'm literally by a fork in the road where there's a divide in the street here. So we put this piece of artwork here. But seriously, one could say that where we are as far as our politics and economics and just life in general, we're at a crossroads. We are at a fork in the road. We have a choice, though. Do we want to keep repeating the mistakes of the past, or do we want a 21st century version of something that's actually different than what we've seen before here in, let's say, first, the United States, okay? Since this is where I live, many of us live that are watching this. And actually, I'm going to read a segment from a book, City Builders, and about what 21st century socialism looks like. And of course, this book was written a few years back during the pandemic. So CPI uses the word innovationism. So what does 21st century innovationism look like? Well, there are a lot of similarities, one could say, to the original definition of socialism. Original definition, not how it's been co-opted and changed, evolved, whatever, in certain ways since. And understanding the history obviously puts it in better perspective. But let's say our 4-point economic plan is kind of 21st century, let's say for the moment, innovationism, before I read this segment in the book. A mass mobilization to rebuild the country. You know, that's one of the things that the New Deal did, right, back in the 1930s. Public ownership of our natural resources. That would make sense, you know. The ground, what's in the ground, what's in the water, what's in the air, you know, the sunshine. It's crazy that the former CEO of Nestle, for instance, should think that all water, a natural resource, should be privatized for profit. That's just nuts. And the third economic point is a public banking system that, again, are not for profit, but you know, the people run the public banks. They make the most important decisions regarding banking. And then the Economic Bill of Rights, like the one that FDR had proposed in 1944, where, you know, a home, a decent job, and enough to eat, you know, and a sustainable lifestyle, even fun and recreation, that everybody has a right to a good life, basically. Okay, this segment I'm going to read right now from the book. Actually, it's an education manual called We Are City Builders. This segment is called The Nature of 21st Socialism. I thought during our book club, this section, one section that stood out, so I'm going to read it for you. China sits at the center of a new block of anti-imperialist countries, which largely represent the contemporary incarnation of the city-building tendency. The Bolivarian countries of Latin America, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and its allies in the Middle East, the Russian Federation, with its state-run economy centered around oil and gas, all represent a kind of global axis of resistance to Western capitalism. Despite their ideological diversity, they all push a message of construction, social progress, and opposition to the unrestrained greed cherished by neoliberal economists. They are humanity's repudiation of the vandalism incarnated by the Atlanticist pathology. Each of these countries is governed by a state which is hostile to the interests of rich and powerful corporations and has a large base among the population. While in the Western world it is commonly understood that quote, corporations control the government, end quote, the rising alternative of the global economy is pioneered by countries where the governments control the corporations in order to ensure continuous growth and innovation. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez took office in 1999 and said he was in favor of neither capitalism nor socialism. His Bolivarian movement, named after anti-colonial hero Simon Bolivar, represented doing whatever was best for Venezuela. However, in 2003, he announced that Venezuela would be taking the socialist road. Chavez was conscious of the fact that the kind of socialism emerging in the aftermath of the Cold War was different from the Soviet Union's model. In 2005, Chavez told an audience at the World Social Forum, quote, "We have to reinvent socialism. It can't be the kind of socialism that we saw in the Soviet Union, but it will emerge as we develop new systems that are built on cooperation, not competition." Very important point. It is impossible within the framework of the capitalist system to solve the grave problems of poverty of the majority of the world's population. We must transcend capitalism. But we cannot resort to state capitalism, which would be the same perversion of the Soviet Union. We must reclaim socialism as a thesis, a project, and a path, but a new type of socialism, a humanist one, which puts humans and not machines or the state ahead of everything, end quote. The Chavez government reconstructed the Venezuelan economy to be centered around the state-controlled oil company, similar to Putin's economic reorganization of Russia around the national champions of oil and gas. This model of petro-socialist development had been perfected over the years. It was first put into practice by the Ba'athist Arab socialists of Iraq and Syria, Gaddafi's Islamic Socialist government in Libya, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. As Venezuela presently faces the onslaught of destabilization and imposed shortages that began during a 2014 oil price drop, it is important to note what the Bolivarian government of Venezuela achieved prior to this crisis. In 1998, when Chavez was elected, Venezuela had only 12 public universities. Now it has 32. Between 1999 and 2009, poverty and unemployment in Venezuela were cut in half. In neighborhoods across the country, free health care is provided by Cuban doctors. The Bolivarian government oversaw the eradication of adult illiteracy in the country, with Cuban literacy volunteers imported to carry it out. Access to modern housing has greatly expanded, with over 1 million modern housing units being constructed and interest-free loans allowing millions of Venezuelans to build their own homes. It is because of these huge achievements that Nicolas Maduro and the United Socialist Party maintain a solid base with millions of loyal activists, even amid the recent turmoil. In 2006, Bolivia elected a socialist president, Evo Morales. He took office and began constructing roads across the country. Morales followed a path similar to Chavez and nationalized the natural gas and other resources of the country. He also brought in Cuban literacy and medical volunteers to provide services. In 2018, Bolivia experienced the highest rate of GDP growth of any country in South America. As the state-directed economy plowed forward, Chinese investment aided the process of expansion. 2006 was also the year that the Sandinistas, Marxist Christians who led the Nicaraguan 1979 revolution, were re-elected to run the government. Their construction projects and social programs resulted in poverty being reduced in Nicaragua by 30% from 2005 to 2014. Between 2007 and 2016, the GDP of Nicaragua has risen by 36%, according to the Wall Street Journal, actually. The Sandinista government created a network of citizen power councils to reinforce the goals of the revolution on a neighborhood level. One of the most successful programs of Ortega's socialist government has been lending money to impoverished people in order to become micro-entrepreneurs and to form cooperatives. The World Happiness Index of the United Nations rated Nicaragua with the highest increase of happiness of any country in the world in 2016. Imagine that. The wave of new happiness was generated due to the flourishing economic opportunities many Nicaraguans were seeing due to socialist central planning. The various incarnations of 21st century socialism, be they Chinese, Bolivarian, Islamic, or Ba'athist, serve as the primary source of optimism in the world. The global bloc centered around the two Eurasian superpowers preaches an ideology of construction and hope. However, 21st century socialism was very much reeks of the things that the synthetic left has labeled fascist. When reviewing Susan Sontag's words, this becomes very obvious. In providing services for the most impoverished and mobilizing the entire country in a joint effort to improve conditions, the new socialism is most certainly working to build a family of man. Young people in the socialist countries join the young pioneers and other groups that wear uniforms and are told they are part of the effort to build a better country, quote, uniformly garbed and shown in swelling numbers, end quote, the massing of groups of people. The leaders like Xi Jinping, Nicolas Maduro, Vladimir Putin, and Ali Said Khamenei in Iran, who of course you know has been assassinated in 2026, are seen as father-like figures directing the country in its efforts for national rejuvenation. All-powerful hypnotic leader figure or force, orgiastic transitions between mighty forces and their puppets. The will is staged publicly in the drama of the leader and chorus. That's a quote. In China, as Xi Jinping reemphasizes the Marxist ideology and communist aesthetics, increasingly elderly Chinese people have gathered to exercise together in public squares. Students also conduct joint exercises in front of their schools. Russia has Nashi summer camps for its high-achieving youth, where they are taught to use their skills for the good of the nation. In Bolivarian countries, young people assemble in public parks for free martial arts classes provided by the socialist government. Again, quote, mass athletic demonstration, a choreographed display of bodies, end quote. In China, Iran, Venezuela, Bolivia, and Russia, a spirit of selflessness is promoted. Those who give their lives to defend the revolutionary process are viewed as great heroes, and a spirit of all for one and joint effort is promoted. The fetishism of courage, the dissolution of alienation in the ecstatic feelings of our community. 21st century socialism seems to be fulfilling the Marxist vision of a nationally organized economy marching toward the goal of great material abundance. The new socialist bloc has created societies in which production is no longer restrained by the irrationalism of greed. Good point. Millions can be raised from poverty as the state, despite whatever problems generated by corruption and human fallibility, plans out economic activity. The socialist countries have neutralized the intellectual strata that played such a key role in dismantling the Soviet Union, and also learned to utilize the strengths of the marker to advance socialist planning. The socialism of the 21st century is far more capable of producing consumer goods and unleashing human creativity. Socialism does not face the stagnation and overall difficulties faced by the Eastern Bloc during the Cold War. Socialist countries are developing mechanisms for continued adjustments so that their models of development do not become so rigid that they collapse as the USSR did. 21st century socialism is able to bend so it does not break. Since the Russian Revolution of 1917, socialism has taken impoverished countries and raised them up from poverty. Socialism has boosted science and the arts to a great degree and has done a huge amount to advance all of humanity. At the dawn of the 21st century, Russia and China were both deeply impoverished, non-industrialized agrarian countries. Today, they are both superpowers. Cubans live far more comfortably than other people throughout the Caribbean. South America's Bolivarian countries have taken huge measures to construct infrastructure and eradicate poverty, governing under the slogan, not capitalism, but Islam. The Islamic Republic of Iran has overseen a huge amount of economic development. As these countries have risen from poverty with non-capitalist economies, the new socialism has effectively broken with much of the sentiments expressed by the revolutionary intelligentsia. In our age, the revolutionary intelligentsia has largely been absorbed into the synthetic left of Western countries. That's the distinction that we can make here. It no longer strives to advance human progress, while existing socialism often presents itself in very conservative terms as a defender of stability and traditional cultures. For those who see Marxism only as a method of deconstruction, the achievements of nations pulling together and striving for a global community of win-win cooperation can only be dismissed as fascist. However, for those who view the question of historical progress in a scientific way, it must be understood that 21st century socialism stands as the modern-day incarnation of the city-building tendency, facing an onslaught from the vandals who crave chaos and regression. And we're certainly seeing that. And that's why the Center for Political Innovation, we do focus on the 4-point economic plan about demanding a government of action for working families and focusing on that, whereas what he refers to as the synthetic left, Caleb, the author here, Caleb Maupin, it's based on issues that can be addressed maybe down the road if people feel a need to do so. But the number one top priority would be the economy, so we build towards abundance for everyone, not just the people at the top. So this is all food for thought. So hope you enjoyed that. The nature of 21st century socialism is we also talk about innovationism here in the United States for the moment. That's something to contemplate. Have a great day.